Okay, welcome back to the most powerful show in all media, and the reason is the audience. Let's hear some audience. Where is the posse today, Raheem and then Jack? Tell me where people are.
More fights than yesterday, I'll tell you that much. I was tired of the whining yesterday morning.
Well, they came back off Christmas.
I know, everyone's feeling a bit lazy. I was feeling a bit
the
slow and sluggish as well, but people have got the fight back in them right now, specifically looking at the details surrounding the omnibus bill and the COVID relief bill as well, and who are the people who are voting against the president right now, especially on our side. People are going through and taking names, making sure that they realize and recognize who these people are that are routinely and just wantonly stabbing the America First movement in the back right now. People who, by the way, have coasted off the back of this president, people who have coasted off the back of this movement for so very long. And interestingly, you know, there's that whole debate going on right now. We talked about it in the break about what Charles Payne has been tweeting about, hey, do you have a $2,000? Do you have $600? And honestly, most people are like, hey, I don't care. I want reality back. I want normality back. Don't give me your little piddling checks to continue shutting me up. Let's get back to reality.
Well, how's that going to happen if we got didn't WHO come out this morning, and the WHO, one of the senior scientists, correct me if I'm wrong, the senior scientists say that the vaccine's not going to, you still got to wear a mask, and it's still transmissible. They think it's still transmissible. You got to wear a mask. You still have to have lockdowns, and you have to social distance. I'm not making this up, right? This is WHO, isn't it?
We could do a whole show on this. I mean, they're finding out that the Chinese vaccine in Brazil, the Sinopec vaccine, they're happy that it's 50%. Ours, they're saying it's 90, but we don't know how long the immunity is going to last. This is an endemic virus now. It's part of our culture. It's going to be with us. It's not going to be something that's going to be knocked down overnight.
Well, and CCP Tedros is coming out this morning saying, hey, we're going to have more pandemics. Okay.
Sure we are. What did Miles Guo and Dr. Yan? First off, Dr. Yan says China has never produced a vaccine in 5,000 years. Just never produced it, right? How did they come up with this vaccine? She's been telling you, hey, the CCP, none of their research is honest. They gun deck everything, right? You can't trust anything.
In fact, I thought it was interesting she told us that anybody in China who has any money at all insist on buying foreign vaccines 100%. For their children.
By the way, so you have also Dr. Yan says back in June, and Miles Guo says, as soon as you come close to any vaccine in the West, you're going to have other strains pop up that are more contagious. That's a quote from them from, I think, from May and June, right? We were talking about the thing going away in the summer. We said, no, we're not going to change the name of the show. Guess what? You get a vaccine. I'm not talking about, I don't know about the efficacy of this vaccine, but you got a vaccine that's coming out, right? And what happens? All of a sudden in the UK and South Africa and other places, oops, having more contagious, was it 70 times more contagious? There's no conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen, but there are no coincidences, right? The CCP's all over this. Of course, we've got our brethren. This is what the world picture. We're going to get more into the geopolitics, finance, pandemic, all of that in the coming weeks as we grind through the most historic, I think, couple of weeks in American history, at least modern American history, I think since World War II. As we talk about, do we have a republic we're going to bequeath to our kids? Big headline in the Financial Times, fabulous newspaper, if you're the party of Davos, right? This is the party of Davos, this is The Economist. You got boost for EU business as Brussels nears investment deal with China. CCP, this is why I was over there fighting the populist, nationalist program for years. My speech always had, half of the speech was always about the CCP. And it can't be blank looks in every face. What are you talking about China? What's this thing with China? Here's what's with China. They're over there. They're not just buying the United States of America. The Chinese Communist Party is buying Brussels. This is a full end run. And by the way, their economy is just continually on pumping up on printing yuan, right? RMB. So this thing right now, I got to tell you, and this is why this 2000 with Charles Payne. Charles, it's not just, you just can't throw another 2000. I'm a big believer. I don't like direct cash payments to people, but in a situation like this, if we're going to take care of this bridging thing for aggregate demand, I'd rather have the cash payments go to American people than go into the swamp. And that was the mantra. $2,000 for every American, not 1 penny for the swamp. Where are the cuts? You just can't come back and say, hey, we love the Purdue, Loeffler, plan of signing the appropriation, the $1.4 trillion appropriations. Right. We also like the $900 billion, which they kept right in our training for optics, to throw that in there. President Trump, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about there had to be cuts. Now, they've convinced him he can do it from the Budget Control Act, which he actually can't because the Democrats are going to reject it. But he's a business guy. He's saying, hey, I'm a line item out all this crap, and that's going to equal the basically $600 billion that gets to the 2,000 per person, right?
Can we go back a little bit and let me ask you this question here? Does the way the Republicans are dealing with this not just remind you of kind of the pre-Tea Party Republican, free markets are everything type of deal, the way they're behaving right now? And it's not just politically, it's strategically as well. Every single thing they're doing is designed to give the Democrats a win here.
Stop with the Republicans sit there and talk about they want free markets. That's all crap. Why do we call it the United States of the Federal Reserve? Because the Federal Reserve right now is they're buying everything. Remember, there's no downside for the wealthy. There's none. You've socialized the risk and uncapped the upside. This is what Obama did in 2008. This is how Joe Biden, this is how they got through the financial crisis. What they did is they just blew up the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve. It had started with $880 billion, went to $4 trillion under the most progressive president in history. Obama, at the end of the day, his presidency will be known. That's why Tariq and these other guys blow him up all the time. His will get known as really the 1%'s presidency. What he did is the greatest thing. Donald Trump had that great tweet back in 2012. He said, hey, if you ever want to go long real estate, I think stocks, now's the time to get in because there's going to be a roll. As Obama kept doubling down and tripling down off of what Bush, and we're not taking the Bushes off the hook, of what they had talked about. Here, because of the CCP virus, the same kind of thing happened, and part of it initially was emergency. I get that. Back in March and April, people we were very uncertain how this thing would play out. But, and I think this is to Jack Maxey and the other guys, the whole thing of targeted interventions. We now know, we've come up a learning curve. We now know so much more. If you really look at the data and the evidence, Dr. Fauci, Tony, what you should do is go back and read all the Peter Navarro memos. I can't wait till Peter Navarro, these memos get released and you see the lies and misrepresentations of Tony Fauci. I don't think he's going to be short list of Times Man of the Year when all the information comes out about science and data and evidence, okay? And now we know about targeted interventions, and I agree with you. These plans are like in California and in New York, you're just crushing an economy. And folks, if you think New York City is coming back any time in the decade, you are sadly mistaken because this is the greatest city on earth. It has been broken, okay? It has been crushed. And I don't know how you, in the middle class entrepreneurs, really the tip of the spear of the Trump revolution, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam.
No, nobody's talking about the $2 trillion in bond payments that China has outstanding as well here throughout all of this. I mean, where are these so-called fiscal hawks in the Republicans? They're not fiscal hawks. They're swamp hawks. They're people who are looking out for themselves. They want to make sure they own. And hey, here's the deal. Let's even go back. You talk about the direct payments to people. Look at the major corporates that got so much money the first time around and the major interests that are getting so much money the second time around. This is designed. They're trying to get you to fight between $600 and $2,000 because it is designed to concentrate more wealth in the hands of the people who already have wealth. And that's why they got you fighting over $600 and $2,000 instead of saying, actually, how about we just strip all of this away from it? You could have had a one-page bill for all of this stuff that said, hey, here's what we're going to give you to get there. And by the way, we're reopening everything right now.
Look,
Jack.
if we don't close on this victory, this is the future. Because remember, Biden was put on as the adult supervision of the populist Obama as the neoliberal neocon. So you got Schumer, Biden, Pelosi, and Mitch. And this whole fiasco you're seeing coming out of this thing is basically what the future entails unless we close on the victory.
This whole argument between $600 or $2,000 or how much of our money the government is going to give to us and borrow against our grandchildren is kind of ridiculous to me. It is a giant smokescreen. If there's anything that the American people want, they want to get up off their backsides. They want to go back to work. They want to open up this country. We are watching now the worst hospitalization since this whole thing started. But somehow I don't see CNN, filming refrigeration trucks everywhere and moving hospital
And the
ships to New
emergency
York.
hospitals are closed. Exactly.
This is
right?
getting
Nightingale in the UK
ridiculous.
is closed. The ship's closed. What's
As
going
bad
on?
as the U.S. is, I don't know how Boris, walk me through the U.K. How did they come to the conclusion of the hard lockdown over Christmas, the second lockdown?
Well, they're now even talking about, so you know you had tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Then they introduced tier 4. I spoke to my parents over the Christmas break.
What tier are
they're
they?
They're in tier 4. They're in the highest lockdown tier possible. And now
Because of the part of town you guys live in?
Yeah.
Which part is that?
in London. And now you're in West London. And now you're looking
Is all of West London tier 4?
effectively the entirety of London. And now they're talking about a tier 5. Now, if everything's locked down to the fullest, I mean fullest, pub shut, restaurant shut, no nail bars, salons, no one's going to work, no one out in the streets, police will harass you, etc. If that's tier 4, what's tier 5? Is tier 5 something out of Soylent Green? Is tier 5 welding you into your house?
It's like Wuhan.
And the other thing is, we took this advice from the communist Chinese. Do you notice how quickly the entire world was ready to do, what they did in Wuhan, we have to do this everywhere. It hasn't worked. We're still being gaslighted, people.